Welcome to the WordPress initial setup, the little things you need to do to make sure your brand new WordPress install is freshly set up and clean and ready to go and send you on your way. So right off the bat, as you can see, we're logged into a fresh, clean install of WordPress, and this install of WordPress is nice installed. It was done with an automatic system using what's known as Fantastico one-click install. And unfortunately, not all servers make sure the install is up to date with the latest install of WordPress. And you'll see that by a big yellow bar going across the top, showing that this is 3.41 installed. 3.41 is available, and this isn't it. So what we need to do is we need to update it. Plus, there's a couple other things that'll be updated. You'll also notice that it's a welcome screen here telling you some of the things you need to do to your WordPress website. We'll be coming back to this screen in a few. So first, we do the update. Click on Please Update Now, and it takes you to the update window. And it's got three things that need to be updated here. First is the WordPress core update, then you've got plugin update, and then you've got theme update. Now there is a system to doing updates later down the road, and so I'll show you that briefly when you're doing updates. It's always best to do themes, plugins, and then the core, because sometimes down the road what will happen is if you update the core, you will break plugins or sometimes cause your whole site to break. So you always do it from the back end, go forward. Click Update the Themes. Takes just a moment to do. And then you go back to the WordPress updates. Then you can update your plugins. Click on the updates. And then go back to the updates. Now keep in mind that the update, while looking very simple and easy here, can bring you grief from time to time. It doesn't happen a lot, but when it does happen, you might not know what to do. And if you get stuck in a jam, you can always go visit me at my website at johnoverall.com, click on the emergency WordPress support, or pick up the phone and dial my phone number up in the top left corner of my website. So that you can click Update Now for your WordPress version. And that takes just a moment longer than the plugins and the themes because it's got to download more files and then it's got to update your database. And then it sends you right back to the front page of your website, to the welcome screen. And it's a nice, clean welcome screen telling you about the new theme previews, the new custom headers you can do, new Twitter embeds, better captions, other things that were done under the hood. So just a few things you can deal with. So now that we're there, then we can go back and click on the Home button, which will take us back to the home screen. Now on this home screen, this is where we're going to start doing the basic WordPress install settings. And this is very important. Most people overlook these basic settings. They just dive right in and start putting their content in, tweaking their theme, everything else they're going to do. It's always a good practice to just sort of do the basics first. They've got some ideas here telling you what you might need under their basic settings. They tell you to choose your privacy settings, select your tagline, turn comments on or off, fill in your profile, miscellaneous things like that. We're going to cover a few of those things. You might want to come back and check this list later. Now to do this, where we start is we start at the bottom down here for settings. And we're going to start with the general settings. Click the general settings tab and it will take you on over to the general settings. Now in the general settings, you've got a few things. You've got your site title if you didn't already create it. You've got your tagline if you didn't already create it. Then you have your WordPress URL and your site address URL. These two items here you should never change unless you have a specific reason or you know exactly why you're changing them. If you change them and don't know why or how, you could lock yourself out of your website and make it very difficult to get back to it, forcing you to either reinstall or go into the database and fix it. Then you got your email address. Set your email address. This email address is very, very important. The reason this email is important is due to the fact that it is where all your administration emails are going to go. Anytime WordPress website, your core site needs to talk to somebody, it will talk to whoever has this administrative email. So make it yourself or somebody who's going to take care of those things. Next item is setting up your membership if you have membership. If you're not going to use a membership site, leave that unchecked. If you do, make sure you set their user role, whether it be administrator, editor, author, contributor, or subscriber, which is the lowest. Next item is the time zone. I like to bring my time zone to my local setting here, which of course is wonderful west coast of Canada, which is near Vancouver, not quite Vancouver, but it's close as I can come to Victoria, BC. And the reason for setting your time zone is simply for the timestamps that are going to be stamped on your posts, your pages, and other things in your site so it can be accurate. Your date format, however you prefer your date to be set up. Your time format, however you prefer your time format to be set up. And then your week. When does your week start? Mine starts on Sunday. Some people start on Thursday. It all varies. So you set that, hit Save Changes, and you're good to go there. The next item is your writing settings. These settings here are to determine how your site's going to look when you're doing your writing. Now, generally the default settings are pretty good on this page, but one I like to change for certain is this one here, the size of the default of the post box. I like to change it from 20 to 23 simply because I want a couple extra lines when I'm making my post. A little bit larger box seems to work much nicer for me. Then you can set your default post category, format. If you use multiple formats, you can set your blog role, things of that nature. Press this or post via email. Very few people use these. I have not seen them 100% successfully used, so I just skip over them. Remote publishing, though, I do use it, and that is the apps for your iPad, your iPhone, your Android device. If you do not enable these protocols, those apps will not be able to connect, so make sure you enable those protocols. This next item is your update services or your ping services. Now, the ping services need to be added to. I mean, they give you one default one, which is nice, but you want more. What the ping services do is they allow you to connect, and once you make a post, it goes out and tells all these different places, hey, I got a new post, come visit my website, which then tells other people to come visit your website. I've got a great big long list you can get from me. You can email me at john@wppro.ca, and I will email it to you, or I will eventually get it on my website tied to this. So once you've got that set, hit Save Changes. So then we move on to our next one, which is the reading settings. And these settings here are for when someone is going to look at your website from two different angles. One being they visit your website at its regular domain name, and this is going to tell you how it's going to display the front pages, whether it's going to be a static post or pages. This is something you will deal with much later when you're setting up your theme. This next one's, though, your blog pages show up most and your syndication feeds to show up most. These ones here, the default settings of 10 is usually pretty good, but of course the blog pages, what this one refers to is in your archive page, in your front page post that lists off a continuous line of posts. Well, this tells how many it's going to show. 10 might be too many or might not be enough. It depends on your own viewpoint. So you might want to consider changing that at a later time. The syndication feeds, this is for the RSS feed, and a lot of people will look at your site via RSS, so you might want to set that. 10 is generally a good number, I think. And the other thing, though, below it, this one's important. For every article in the feed, do you want it to show the full text or summary? Now, my personal opinion goes towards summary, although recently I've started to experiment with full text. But the reason for it is what happens is, although people will read your article in the feed, and it'd be nice to let them have the full text, the problem is scrapers will come in and scrape your website and take your content and then put it on their website. And if you've got it set for full text, that means they get your entire article, put it on your website. If someone discovers their website and not yours, they can read the entire article without coming to visit you, the original creator of that article. So I always drop it to summary unless I'm doing some very specific things. And the reason being is if they like the article, they can then click the link that's going to be there and then bring them back to my website where the original content is at. Very important. Underneath that is encoding for the pages and feeds, and you'll never want to change this unless you have some very specific uses and you know exactly what you're doing. Otherwise, you can break your website. Hit Save Changes. Discussion settings. This is your next one. Now, your discussion settings are the commenting area. When people leave a comment on your website, how is that going to be handled? Again, the default settings down through here are quite perfect. A couple of things you may or may not want to change along the way. Under comment settings here, users must be registered. You could force every user to register on your site. Generally not a good idea if you want comments, unless you have a very specific type of site like a membership site where you only want members to be able to comment on things. Automatically close comments on articles older than X number of days may be a good idea if your content is time sensitive. Break comments into pages. This you only use if you have a super busy website that gets loads of comments per post. Next thing down is it will automatically email you, but before a comment appears, if you're a young website, which most of them are, you click this box and it'll force an administrator to log into the website and approve the comment before it appears. This kind of helps control things in the beginning. Now, after your site gets busy, it can become a pain, so you'll want to come back here and turn that off. The other thing, though, the one thing I always do is I change the comment moderation from 2 down to 1. The reason for this is if there's more than one link in somebody's comment, there's a good chance they're a spammer, because most people commenting don't leave a lot of links. There's no need for them to do that unless they're trying to drive traffic to their website for some reason. You can also build a list here of blacklist words or IP addresses, and what will happen is it'll be held in moderation. Then there's also a blacklist. This blacklist here will block people from your website if they use certain words, IP addresses, URLs, emails, anything like that. It's a way to keep people off your site you don't want there at all. Then underneath that is the avatars. I like to change my avatars around, and I leave the default settings, but I change it from Mystery Man to Gravatar. And if you don't know what a Gravatar logo is, go check it out on Google it up, and you'll find out all about Gravatars. Hit Save Changes. The next one down here is media, and you're not going to change anything here on media, but it's good to take a look at it and see what you can change. Maybe later when you get more experience or know where you're going, you can come in here and adjust things like your thumbnail size, your medium picture size, your large size, auto embeds, max picture size, even customize your uploads folder if you need to be. Privacy settings. This one here, again, you're not going to change, but it is important, and you might change it in the beginning. If you're building a brand new website, never seen before, you might want to tell the search engines to not index your site until you're done. The reason for that is sometimes you're putting sample content, test information, things of that nature, and you don't want that to show up in Google's index and have to wait for several days or a week after you go live to get rid of it, so your real content will show up. So you can tell them not to index you. Final one here, and this one is very important to deal with, and this is your permalink setting. Now, the permalinks here should be set to a default. And Matt, if you ever run across this and you're listening, change this to post name. Very important to have it as post name. And post name is the best way to do it. The default setting is to set it as your domain name, P equals 123. So it's basically a number, means nothing to anybody except the program itself. If you change it to post name, what happens is it changes it so it shows up as sample post. For example, you can have it as your domain name / myfantasticpost, and that's exactly what the link in the URL address bar will actually show up for folks. Then if you've got some fancy tweaking, you can play with a category base and a tag base. Not something I'm going to show here. So that's the basic settings there. So we're going to move on to a couple more basic important settings that need to be dealt with. And to deal with those, first we go up to users, and we're going to look at the users. Now, if your website or your install created your website with the default of admin as the user, well, you need to make some changes there. So this one here didn't, as you can see. And what happens, you want to go in there and make a couple of changes for your own name. Simply because if you're going to be putting content, you want people to know who you are. You can go in there and change your admin color scheme if you like. If you don't like the gray, change it to blue. You can disable the visual editor if you like. You can add keyboard shortcuts. Your username, although it says it is unchangeable, it is changeable. There's a wonderful plugin I review on my podcast, WP Plugins, A2Z.com, which tells you how to go in there and change your username from within WordPress. The nickname, it automatically defaults to admin. I like to change that to something else, and I'm going to leave it at my name I used for my login on this install. Now, the other thing though is you want to add your first name and your last name to the site. And the reason for that is so when you go to display your name publicly, you can change it from your login name to your username or to your actual name. The reason for this is if you have your name showing up with your post, if you change it to your actual name, they won't know what your login name is, and it's kind of a simple way to hide your login name from hackers. Makes it a little more difficult for them to have to work a little harder. Doesn't stop them, but it will slow them down a little. You can add your website information, biographical information. You can also change your password here. So this is a very useful area. Come back to it later when you've got some more things to do. Now what we need to do is we need to toss some junk out from the site. To clear the junk, first we start with the plugins and we look at the plugins installed. And there's always two default plugins, Akismet and Hello Dolly, two very useless plugins for the most part. Hello Dolly can be useful if you want to learn to write plugins. This is a very good plugin to learn. Akismet, anti-spam plugin, in my opinion, not very good, but that's a matter of opinion. So I'll leave it at that. We just go turf them out, hit delete those files, and they're all gone. Then we can, the appearance menu, we're not going to touch. This is when you start to actually tweak with your theme. There's a few things here. Comments menu. This is where we need to get rid of the default comment. Hit the trash. Go to trash bin. Delete it permanently. Then you need to go to pages and turf out the default page. And throw it in the trash. And then go to the trash bin and empty the trash. Now under links, there's a bunch of useless links here. Well, not useless, but links that are not going to be of much value to you for the most part once your site goes live. You can turf all them out. Simply delete them. Now we can check the media folder, but there'll be nothing in the media, so we'll just stop in there for a moment and say hi, see that it's empty. Then we go to posts. Start with all posts, and we're going to get rid of the default post in here also. And again, like the pages, throw it in the trash. Go into your trash bin. And empty the trash. Now what we need to do is we need to go fix up the categories. And under the category menu, you'll see that there is one default category built into the system called uncategorized. A pretty useless term for the most part, but a great place to start. If you click on Quick Edit underneath it, you can change the uncategorized to general information. And then if you wipe out the slug, it will automatically recreate the slug for you. The reason for this, of course, is I find general information more useful, and this default category is undeletable. You can never delete it. It is always going to be there. And if you create a post and don't assign a category, this is where it's going to end up. And that is something for another time. Then we can go into the tags menu and just double check that we've got the tags clean. Should be. No problems. Now we've cleaned up all the junk from the website. And we can pop to the home page real briefly and stop there for a sec. Now on the home page, this again brings us back to the new WordPress site, basic settings, things you can do. You can check this information out, go review it. And what we're going to do now though is we need to add back in a couple of plugins to handle a couple of issues. The first one, of course, is you need to add back in a plugin to handle your spam. And to my opinion, the best spam plugin is the Anti-Spam Bee plugin. And this plugin here, you just do a search for it. install it in on your site. Activate it. And as you saw, that was a very quick, nice, simple install and activation. And if your server doesn't do that for you, if it stops and asks you for FTP information or has any balk at all, you need to talk to your server provider or maybe look for a new one. So once Anti-Spam Bee is installed, it gives you a settings link here. You can just go click on the settings link and then fix a couple of quick settings for it. The default settings are fine on this. You don't want it to check do not check trackbacks and pingbacks is not generally a good idea because spammers will flood you if you don't check them. Comment form used outside of post. If you use the comments form outside of post, it's a good idea to check this so you can check those for spam. A spam counter on a dashboard I like. And then we have a couple of filters to set up. One, you can block your spam coming from specific countries or whitelist specific countries. There's a nice list you can get from me if you like. Just email me, john@wppro.ca. Allow comments in only a certain language, not necessary unless you run a specific language website, and then you can limit the comments to only that language. The most useful one here is to search comment spammers in the Project Honeypot. You can check that. You can go get your Honeypot API key and learn all about the Honeypot system there. So you add that in. Then we go over to the Advanced tab. This Advanced tab allows you to mark your spam as spam and not delete it. And then you can get a notification by email. It will automatically delete spam after X number of days if you check this and set it. You can hide the marked as spam note. You can limit it to be comments or pings. You can delete comments by spam reasons. All in all, I find this not really useful to me because I don't really want to check my spam, so I uncheck that box. And what that means is every comment it determines to be spam, I will never see. It will automatically turf, destroy, and eliminate from my website. There's a small chance I might get some false positives, but not too many. And if I miss some, I'm sorry for anyone who's left me a comment and I've never seen it. Hit Save Changes. Hit it again because the first time it did click. So once that's saved, then what we need to do is we have one more plugin to install. And now we're going to just go simply straight to Add New. And this plugin here is for dealing with the ping list problems that I mentioned, where your system, if you let it ping, your WordPress is set up default, unfortunately, to ping every time you update a post, make a change in a post, change a word, save a draft. It just keeps pinging and pinging and pinging, which can get you banned if you're not careful. So what you need to do is you need to add a specific plugin here, and it's called Ultimate Upload Pinger. Now what I'm going to do is we'll upload it. We click on Upload to it. It's actually called Smart Update Pinger. And Smart Update Pinger, as you can see, I just put it in there for us instead of you having to watch me search for it on my computer. So to get this plugin, you can find this plugin on my website at wppluginsa2z.com, or you can email me and I will happily send it to you. Unfortunately, it's not available in the WordPress repository, but it works very nicely. So once you got it, click Install Now. Takes just another half a moment to install it. Activate it. And there's just a couple of quick settings that need to be dealt with on it. It doesn't give you a link to the settings, unfortunately, so go to the Settings menu, Smart Update Pinger, click on the settings for it. And as you can see, it gives you instructions for usage, updated services, comment suggestions, and that list of I put in there, it automatically synced up with my original list I posted earlier. Enable the pinging. Disable the detailed logging because unless you're doing debugging, you don't need that. Now the nice thing about this, what it does is it limits your pinging to only when you make a normal or a future time-stamped post. In other words, when you first publish the post, not you publish it and go, oh man, I got that error in there, I mistyped a word or whatever. Now you do it again. Normally WordPress goes, hey, I updated again. And if you're like me, sometimes when you're creating a post, you'll make 10, 15 revisions of it before you actually publish it. Well, WordPress will ping every time you do that. So you want to use this. So anyway, once you've got that, click Update Options, and away you go. And that is all of the basics for a WordPress install. We can go back to the home page, and you can double check your basics. Look at a couple of things here. If you don't need that, hit dismiss on that, and it brings you right back to your normal dashboard. Shows you everything that's happening on your website with just a few other additional items. And that's all we've got. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. This has been brought to you by johnoverall.com. Copyright 2012, johnoverall.com for all this wonderful showing of everything. Thanks a lot, folks.